Hi, our guest today is Susan Edmonds, Director of the Milford Town Library.
Welcome.
How are you, Susan?
Well, thank you for having me.
What's new at the library?
We've been doing a lot of changes lately, a lot of electrical upgrades, which I think are really great for the patrons. What we've done now is that we've installed electricity poles that have both the USB port and they also have the regular electrical port, so people now don't have to be around the wall if they need to use their computers. They can sit right in the middle of the library area and they can plug in, and we've also expanded it so that we have about 40 additional ports available for anybody who wants to use their own devices at the library.
So before you put these in, basically people were plugging in along the wall and either sitting there or dragging their cord out where they might be a tripping hazard?
Yeah, it was a tripping hazard. Also, if you had a wheelchair, you couldn't get over the over the wires. So we sort of looked around and said, what do people need in the next couple of years? And we decided to focus on bring your own device. And one of the things that we've done is that we installed in the reference area and also down in the young adult area several extra plugs for people.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That really will make a significant
It's made a big difference already, and they're constantly being used.
I was going to ask, how are people taking to them?
They're doing very well. Well, we have about 10,000 uses per year of our wireless hotspot. So you figure you got 40, 50 plugs. They're each getting used weekly, 4 or 5 times a week. So for us, for safety, and to also improve services and the experience at the library, we decided that that was what we needed to do. We're changing signage around to make it a little bit more friendly that way. And we're also adding, maybe we're splitting up the computers to be a little bit more separate, and also helping us to, we're looking at scanning and printing stations also that people come in for. Okay. We have a lot of people coming in for the registry to use the printers.
From the registry?
From the registry. They don't have printing services over there. So if there's a problem with any of their insurance or anything else doing with their cars or automobiles or vehicles, they have to come and print it off with us. And that makes it hard for them to come over. So we've made it easier for them as well.
Oh, wow.
So people are driving from Beach Street over to the library, coming in and using the equipment just to print.
Yeah. A lot of the insurance papers now are given as PDFs. That's sent to their email. They've got to come over. Since they can't print at the registry, they come over, they print with us, and they go back. We're not the only library that has that issue. Greenfield and any other libraries that are around where the DMV is.
Okay.
Wow.
So let me ask you a question. If more people are coming in with their own devices and plugging them in, does that mean they're reading less of the traditional print book, or are they using their devices to supplement what they do?
Or are they just more users?
More users, and also supplement. eBooks are growing, but there's still a lot of people that love to have a book in their hand. And we have in-house over 130,000 items. And let's say 70,000 of those are books. The rest of the 50 or 60,000 are DVDs or audio books or video games. It's creeping up where it's going to be 50-50, but there's a lot of people that still want books, and it doesn't matter what age. We have a lot of young families come in and they go into the children's department, and what they do is they sit on the floor or sit at the tables that we have and they read the books to the children.
Okay.
So there's really an age, there's a group of people who are more electronic, and that's the young adults or the 25 to 35.
Yeah, most of those people, what they use now is the term born digitally.
Yeah.
So they're much more accustomed to using or going to the internet and eBooks to look for research. With us, there's a lot of databases that we now spend. We spent about $18,000 last year on databases, and 5 years ago, we probably would have spent half. But a lot of the material now is no longer in print. We have to use a database, and we have to provide it. Either we provide it through our money at the local level, or it's done at the state level. And that's what's happening more too, is that the state is starting to get involved in eBooks and more databases.
How easy is it for a patron of the, I was going to say just the Milford Town Library, but of the member network as well, how easy is it to download an ebook if I have a library card?
It's very easy. What you would do, we belong to the Central Western Massachusetts Library System, which is known as CWMARS, and we subscribe to a service called Overdrive. So if you went to the Milford Town Library website which is the milfordtownlibrary.org, and look for the e-catalog, or over to the CWMR's website, you would click on the digital catalog, and what it would do is it would bring you into the digital catalog. You select the book you wanted, or the MP3, or download streaming a video. You put in your library card and follow directions. And now, when it first started, let's say 5 or 6 years ago, there wasn't a lot of devices supported. Now you've got the Kindle, you've got the Nook, you've got the Android, and you also have the, the Kindle Fire supported.
iPads?
iPads as well. And
so if I have an iPad, do I need to download an app on it to make this work?
you have to load the Apple app, and also for the Google app down for the Android. You also have to do the Nook app. It's all explained over there, and also we have little pamphlets telling about it. That's the thing. There's so many devices out there now that have been supported that you have to go into the area of the online catalog instruction-wise, and it tells you exactly what you need to put it on your device.
Okay, now if I take out a paper book, you give me a slip that says it's due back X date, and I bring it back. Do I get something for ebook?
It tells you right then you're allowed to have it to X amount of date, and then what happens is that if it's not renewed, which you can do, go back and renew it, it just stops working on your device.
It just stops?
It just stops.
Interesting. Now, is it loaded on the device, or is it accessed every time you read it?
It's loaded on your device.
Ah, so eventually your device will get full of stuff, and you have to clear the
Right,
memory.
and then you have to go through and cull.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's interesting. So it's timed. Now, let's assume for a second that I live in Mendon, say, and I want to access that book. Okay, do I come to the Milford Library, I get a library card from Milford Library, or can I use my library card from Mendon?
Mendon is one of the members of CWMR's Library Network. So you would either go to the Mendon website, or you would go up to the CWMR's major website for the whole network and click on Digital Catalog and have the same privileges that you would have in let's say, Shrewsbury or any other member.
So
Is Upton a member?
Upton's a member.
Okay, so
I was going to say, this works the same way that ordering a paper book does. So I can go on the CWMR's website and order a book that's in the network and have it delivered to the library I choose.
Yes, if you're a member of CWMR's basically covers anything west of 495, which comprises about 148 libraries. The big libraries are Springfield and Worcester, and the rest of them are like Upton, Mendon, out to the New York State border, Pittsfield. And
Milford must be one of the bigger ones in there.
Milford is in one of the middle categories. We have around 28,000 people in town, and we're right in the middle.
And how many use the library?
Well, we have registered about 15,000 people registered as library users.
Wow.
Okay. Now, I understand as part of your working on your plans for the future, you have a survey coming out shortly.
Yes, what every library has to do in Massachusetts is every 5 years they have to submit to the Mass Board of Library Commissioners a 5-year plan. So what you do is you reflect on what you've been successful, what things you think might need to be changed, and you go out within the community and ask them, well, what do you feel the library can be doing for you in the next 5 years? In the context of everything else that's swirling out there with eBooks and internet access and community groups and everything, how can your library serve you better? So we'll be having a survey which will start on June 26th and run through July 10th. And there will be a paper copy going out in the Milford Town Crier, plus there'll be a web access survey as well. So what we're going to do is take those answers, tabulate them, and use them to help us decide our goals for the next 5 years and the objectives and activities, how we can make those things happen.
But of course, it takes money to make things happen.
Naturally, and I have to say that we've been very well supported by the Milford Finance Committee and the town. They've been very helpful, helping us to keep our funding so we can get our state aid, because what happens is that there's a formula to get state aid every year, and what you have to do is meet a certain target of support from the town that allows you to be eligible for state aid, and then you get the state aid, and you can use the state aid any way you want to for your town.
In the library?
In the library.
Right.
Yeah, supposedly in the towns, our budget's supposed to go up every 2.5% every year to supply. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen. There's been some libraries that have had some hard problems. But we have always been able to make those marks. And I think a lot of it is because the support of the town.
Well, Milford is a very well-financed and managed town, so, you know, it works out well for a lot of departments. It's very
And we
good.
have other support. The Friends of the Milford Town Library, they have been fantastic. They support our museum passes. I mean, without them, we couldn't afford the museum passes. They get, we have the Rogers Williams Zoo, we have the Museum of Fine Arts, we have the Isabel Gardner Stewart Museum. We are now going to have the Worcester Museum. We have a whole list on our website in the library telling you what we do. We get discounts from the museums, and also which ones are available through the Friends.
Okay, the Friends also put on the speakers program that you have?
They do a lot of the adult programming, and they've had some fantastic people come in. And we've done for this year, but starting in September, they're going to have a Civil War band they've had before on a Saturday. They're going to have some local authors come in and talk about their books that they've done. We're going to have hopefully maybe some bell ringers in December. And they put on 2 book sales in October and April, and that's where they get a lot of their money to help us, you know, do our programming.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. Now, what do you see changing in the future of the libraries? Looking 10 years out, 5, 10 years out.
10 years out, I think people are going to look for more communal space. I think how people will work together and study together is changing. Technology's changed that because a lot of the information now will be digital. And everybody has their computers, so they will want to work digitally. Like there's Google Drive right now and Dropbox. A lot of people are using that collaboratively to change documents and everything, and everybody will want a device to be able to work on it from as a group, instead of having a chalkboard or having other ways to communicate. That's what they're going to want. Plus, also, I think people are going to do a lot more online studying. They're going to want a place to be able to do independent study in the library with their devices. I think that's going to change the shape of the library. Also, I think there's going to be expansion in digital, materials. You're still going to need DVDs. You're still going to need audiobooks. Those things are still going to grow because not everybody is going to be able to afford the internet. And also, a lot of people are not going to be able to downstream. So we have to think of those medias. And also, people are still going to want books. And
Well, that was my question. Do you see the tangible paper book going away at any time?
No, I think it will be around. It all depends on how the media is distributed. Plus, I think there's be a lot of books that people will not want to spend the money and digitize. Those books will always be there. And I think we're still at the point where people still want books. They want a hybrid. They want books, and they also want to be able to use the internet and other digital medias. We're not totally digital yet. And
So you don't
see
see hard copy or books going away.
No.
Just the utilization of the older conversion to digital form of some of those books not occurring.
No. If anything, I think it's another layer of research and reading that's in somebody's toolkit. They will not always be, totally digital or totally book. You're going to have to use a combination to find the information you need.
The other thing that you see happening, and it's always been a concern to me, is that people go on the internet and they do research on the internet. But the problem with that is that 50% of the stuff is wrong. So how do you separate what's accurate and not accurate? How do you help with that? Because that's going to be an issue that libraries are going to have to be able to deal with on what's accurate information and what's bogus information.
We can only do so much. I mean, the internet is it's almost like the Wild West right now. Things haven't settled down. There's a lot of guidelines and rules that have not been established. And it's just like with the drones. I mean, the drones have done the same thing. They now have the ability to go into someone's backyard, and there's no guidelines yet. And it's the same thing with, I think, with the research. We can back it up with like written material or other research, but unless someone wants to believe it, they're going to take it.
Well, I know some colleges are now banning Wikipedia in high schools as a source that can be cited. And I've told my own children that if you want to believe Wikipedia, just remember that I can edit and place anything on Wikipedia that you're using.
Well, then the one step further, you're talking about controls on the internet, and we're talking about that kind of stuff. And then what happens is we get into a position where does it become censorship? And for obvious reasons, I'm one who says that censorship is something that we don't want to have happen. We need to have a free press. We need to have free information. We need to have all that stuff happening. So there's a point in time when you say, okay, there's a lot of information on the internet that's bogus, but I can't say it can't be on there because that becomes censorship. So there's going to have to be someone who is the authority to say, okay, that's bogus information and that's viable information. There's got to be some place to go where a reference point.
That is not there yet, in my opinion.
I think it's the difference, though, between people just blogging things or going to an online newspaper or magazine site that evolved out of a traditional print thing and saying, the NewYorkTimes.com has credibility. Does JoeSchmo.com have the same credibility?
Well, again, it's one of those kind of discussions, and I think this is an absolutely imperative that this become a discussion point, because blogs, as you say, blogs are someplace where someone can just write anything they want to write.
That's right.
And they don't have to be held accountable for its accuracy. They just get to say whatever they feel like saying. And so to that point, someone asked me, well, newspapers are going away. And I say, no, it's really not newspapers, it's journalism. And well, someone says, well, anybody can write anything. Well, no, journalism, someone who's a reporter reports on the facts and lets the reader make the decision, as you well know.
Correct.
And bloggers write whatever they want and don't have to be.
It's a perpetual column.
Right, and they're never held accountable for it.
Although they can be. The same libel laws apply.
Well, now that case that's been determined. So there's a lot of lawyers who are now backing away from blogs because they can be held accountable for what they put on the blog.
But I think the books are no different. I think if somebody wants to go look at the Oxford English Dictionary online, if there is a version of it online, it's a trusted source for definitions. Right. Whereas Urban Dictionary is more out there. It's nice to look at, but it's still
urban.
Well, people put in the common uses of things, but it's it's a difference. I mean, I like to know that I can go to a bookstore and buy a book. I can also, if I'm traveling somewhere, maybe download the same book on my tablet and take it with me on the airplane, and do other things with the tablet while I'm traveling, as opposed to carrying a lengthy, weighty hardcover book around.
Well, one of the other advantageous things, if your library card gives you access to books, eBooks, anywhere in the world,
or now, anywhere in the network.
Anywhere in the network.
Well, it's growing.
So what I'm saying is, if I have access to the internet, then I can access that book from anywhere in the world, as long as I have a library card that's linked to my local library.
Yes, what's happening right now with the C.W. Mars network is that we're going to allow the other networks, and the other library cards, will take their library card, and you can add it into the C.W. Mars network. You don't have to get a new library card. And eventually what's going to happen in Massachusetts, you're going to have a universal library card. But this is the first step of doing that. And I think what's happened now is that there's a lot more information out there. There's a lot more, you have to see, need more validity, and I don't think it's there yet. And librarians can help you, guide you, and sort of make suggestions, but they can't have a final, say on this, if this is right or wrong.
No, but there is got to be some place where you go for that knowledge base. And one of the things that, in your particular case, one of the skill sets that you now have to add to your bucket of tools is validity of that infinite bucket of information out there. Because it may be not your responsibility, but now you have to have knowledge about it. Who can I go to ask
Well, things change so quickly that,
Yeah.
you know, what was a trusted website yesterday may not be there. They may have taken it off, or someone else has decided that is not correct information and they've changed it.
Well, I was also going to ask the question, it seems the role of the librarian is changing.
Yeah.
To have more knowledge of the digital world in order to take care of the customers coming in who say, I need help downloading an ebook, or how does this work? So the person who might have joined a library 30 years ago needs to refresh his or her skills.
That and also marketing. Marketing is becoming very important. We have to show that we are current. We have to use Facebook. We use Twitter, Instagram. You have to have a website. And also you need a digital newsletter, because you have to show why you should exist. That's changed from 30 years ago when you were just there and people came to you. Now people use you in so many different ways. Also, as someone said to me, I use all your resources online. I never step into the library. It's now beyond
Or
bricks
there are
and
so
mortar.
many other resources out there. I can choose between a library and these other resources.
That's a big thing. So we have to add a layer of marketing now. We have to be more outward. We do a lot of community stuff with a lot of people.
So just as banks are consolidating to more traffic at a drive-up window, fast food restaurants are doing less business indoors and more at drive-up windows, the library is evolving to have, as you said, people might be using you solely online and you don't see them anymore.
Well, banks are even going back to that point. Banks are even going to kiosk operations. There are banks now that have no people in them. You
Right.
walk in,
Yeah.
you make your deposits and all that kind of stuff, and there's no human being there.
And some banks you can do it with your mobile phone online
Right,
and never
right.
go in.
Do I think libraries will go away? No, but I do feel we are changing, we're evolving, and what I need to now know is what book resources there are, but also at the same time know what's available out on the web.
Well, libraries are going through a dramatic change, just like the internet went through and telephones went through, and all. Libraries now are sucked into that same spot where they're in a transitional phase. They're going from bricks and mortar to some combination. And so we're now in that transition place where people are...
I'd put it differently. I'd put it from libraries, people tend to think of as borrowing a book, but they're really repositories of information in the form of books, and maybe now they're evolving into repositories of information in many forms,
No,
not just a tangible book in your
no,
hand.
what I understand, but what happens now is that what we're talking about is access to library services from your living room.
Right.
Which means it's moving away from a purely bricks and mortar concept where you say, I'm going to go to the library, where you can sit in your living room and have access to that same information. And as time goes on, that's going to become more and more a part of the library configuration.
True, but it also depends on licensing. Sometimes a database cannot be accessed remotely. You have to come in and do it at the library.
I suspect that is going, as time moves on, those people that demand that local library, local access capability, they're going to lose market share because somebody else is going to figure out a way for people to have access to it. For example, graphic design software. It used to be you had to pay a fee and buy the CD and you're off and running. Well, now you pay a licensing fee and you can access that stuff from anywhere in the world. So as the cloud gets more involved in all this stuff, more things accessible, people are going to figure out how to monetize access from anywhere.
I've always considered the library, no matter what media is used, is a portal to information and
Right.
research. Either self-learning or also education.
And so what has to happen is those resources have to be managed from someplace. The job of a librarian becomes more complex. Your job is going to become more complex.
I'm an aggregator of services.
Right. So you have to understand all those things. You can't. It used to be all you had to understand was the Dewey Decimal System and where the bookshelves were and how to, many moons ago. in a past life, perhaps. But
I do miss having the typewriter and typing all those catalog cards out.
yeah, I'm sure you do miss
I
those.
do get maudlin every so often.
Not very often, I'm sure. But
Oh, above the rod. Oh.
so what happens is, as time goes on, you're going to have to move more and more into the role of a technologist, as opposed to just a focus on library. You become more of a technologist, because someone's going to come to ask you and say, okay, how do I access the internet, or how do I access this server? And you're going to have to understand those things.
Well, my staff has done that, and they're very good at it. They are very professional. When someone walks through that door, you don't know what they need, and if what they came in for one reason may not be what they need.
Right.
So my staff, everybody is very good at that. They interview the person. They make sure that that person finds what they need. If we don't have it, we suggest another place to get it. We don't want anybody walking out of that library without finding some sort of information that they need.
Well, that's a centralized location for information,
Right.
as you say.
Now, what do you see coming in the future that may change in the library? I know you're doing your study, but will someday there be a self-checkout counter like the supermarket?
That's coming up too. Another big trend now in libraries is something called makerspace. And what that is that you start using 3D printers, you have self-checkout, you make community space that people can collaborate. And this is the newest thing that will happen, is that we will start changing how we have people work within the library.
So the library becomes when you say community space, it'll be a place where people not only can collaborate, but they can have meetings. It'll be a resource that the community can use, not necessarily focused on library issues, but on community use issues.
We do that right now. We host about 1,000 meetings a year, and they're primarily the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Overeaters Anonymous.
Citizens for Milford?
Yes, Citizens from Milford. We have the Energy Committee meet there. We have the Mass Rehab meets there, New Hope, a few places. So we have almost 1,000 meetings a year.
Yeah, and a lot of communities, for example, Upton is going through a library assessment, and that's one of the issues on the table. It's now no longer just a place that stores a repository of books, as you say, but
yeah.
It's now they're talking about maybe including a senior center and some other things in that, so it becomes a resource for the community, not just books, but also a resource for space to be available for people to use.
But I think people need to know also, before, the library never changed. It didn't change for 130 years or whatever. But it's okay to have a plan now the way the library works, but it may change in 10 years.
Right.
It's okay to sit back and say, well, I need to do something different. I need to change things around.
Okay. Well, we just heard a little beep, which means we're out of time. Susan, this has gone fast.
Well, thank you for having me.
I could talk another 2 hours on this, by the way. Information, it's cool. Thanks for coming. It was fantastic.
No, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.
All right.